And that's equally true that oftentimes the CEO, founder, owner of the company, while a rainmaker, while a great closer, most often does not make for a great sales manager. Great sales managers can't just be charismatic. As I said earlier, charisma doesn't scale. Rhythm does. Structure does.
Welcome to the Great Talent, Great Business Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit greattalentpodcast.com. where you can download this episode's free worksheet designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today's guest is Morné Smit, CEO of Immerse Sales and a globally recognized sales strategist. He's helped hundreds of companies unlock serious growth, often seeing year-over-year gains of 30% or more. With experience across more than 65 industries and 4 continents, he brings practical, battle-tested advice on building scalable teams and getting to the root of stalled pipelines. Morné, welcome to the show, and let's dive right in.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
So when a company brings you in, they're going to say something like sales isn't working, which is a pretty big generalization.
Sure.
How often is the issue talent? Is it sales strategy? Is it the product or service? What do you find more often than not is really the problem?
Great question, Rob. Whenever we look at a company and decide whether we're going to take them on as a client, there's really kind of 3 key areas that we want to look at. The first one is people, the second one is process, and the third one is proposition. So in the first instance, do you have the right people in the right seats, and are they able to do the right things most of the time? The second one is process. So do you have a sales process that has been optimized for what it is that you're trying to bring to market? And the third one is the proposition. Do you have an irresistible offer? Now, to your question as to how often is it talent, the answer is almost always, or at least there's always an element of talent that is not being addressed. I often think that even if you have a great strategy, a great North Star, a great sales plan, if you don't have the right people in the right seats executing that strategy, it's going to be a false start. So many of the companies that I work with are privately owned by very talented entrepreneurs or business partners, and they're not short on having great ideas. They have lots of good ideas. The problem is that they are short on executional clarity. They're short on cultural alignment or having a sales culture by design, I would say. And then very often they're short on leadership rhythm. So they're short on particularly sales management rhythm or sales management cadence. So sales underperformance is often not a knowledge gap as much as it is a gap in the systems, which leads to a gap in the behavior. And that is very often rooted in either a mismanaged or a misaligned talent pool within a business.
Thanks for explaining that. You've worked with elite salespeople all over the world, and you've probably seen a lot of the majority not so elite salespeople. What are the traits that you look for in a salesperson? And then how do you go ahead and assess those traits?
Absolutely. It's a big question. There's lots of characteristics and traits that we could be measuring within a sales professional. But if I had to say the 3 that immediately come to mind for me is number 1, pattern recognition. Is the salesperson able to recognize patterns of behavior, activities, and habits? So many salespeople think that it's about the product or service. I have to work for a company that makes a great product or provides a good service or has a great brand. And these things are important, unquestionably. But if you make it about the product or service, you're going to fail to recognize that sales at its core is a human interaction. It's about human psychology. It's about buying psychology. So are you able to recognize the patterns, the activities, behaviors, the habits that if you do them frequently, if you do them enthusiastically, if you do them with energy, they are going to be predictors of future success? The second thing that we look for in elite salespeople is self-awareness. And what I mean by this is specifically the self-awareness as to why somebody would buy from you and why they would not buy from you. And I want to be explicit when I say this, Rob. When I say that, I mean, why would somebody buy from you as an individual? Why does somebody buy from Morné? Not from immersesales.com, from Morné. Why does somebody buy from Rob? Not from Work Better Now, from Rob. What is it about you, your personality, the way you carry yourself, the words that you use, your energy, what we call your posturing, so how you show up in a first appointment? What makes you memorable, special, unique? If you're one of 5 people that I meet who are pitching me the same service, why would I remember you? Why would I feel that you're the best fit? And then the counterpoint to that, which is equally important, is what is it about you that stops people from buying? Is there something about the way that you communicate? Do you maybe talk more than you listen? Do you struggle to establish trust or be perceived as a trusted advisor? What is it about you as an individual and the way that you behave in your sales process that causes friction in people buying from you? And then, of course, once we've uncovered whether they have self-awareness, and hopefully they do, then I want to see that there is a willingness, there's desire and commitment for that sales professional to mitigate or work on some of these areas of development and for them to really double down on some of the strengths that they have. And then the final and third piece is a genuine belief that they're here to help, not to hustle. We teach our clients to demonstrate that you care more about the customer than you do the transaction. And there's lots of ways that you can do that, big and small ways. We teach them how to build trust, how to increase your perception of value, how to act like a trusted advisor. Well, do you have the ability to do that? And does that come from a place of sincerity? Do you genuinely sit in front of a prospect and go, how can I help you? And you know what? If I can't help you, I'm still going to give you advice. I'm still going to try and help you solve this problem. And I may, even if I know somebody, direct you to somebody else that might be able to do this thing better, faster, cheaper, because I want you to solve the problem, even if you don't solve it with me. That's an incredibly difficult mindset for most salespeople to adapt. And it's made worse by the fact that we have sales leaders or sales managers that are beating us with a big stick to make our number at the end of the month. But if you can truly adopt that belief that I'm here to serve, and if I serve more, I will sell more, then you are over time going to outperform anybody else in your product or service category. And then to your question as to how we assess for that, we have a variety of tools that we use that can tease out a lot of this information in the early days. But to be honest, the way that we do it with our clients is we want to assess with real plays, not with interviews. So I want to take my short list of people and I want to put them through their paces. You know, so often salespeople are really good at selling themselves in an interview,
Right.
and they're not very good at selling your product or service. So what I want is for my coaches to put them through their pages. You say that you can overcome this objection. I'm going to put you on the spot. Show me. You say that you're great at asking questions in a discovery. Let's role practice discovery. Let's go. So actually put them through their paces and see if they can react under pressure so that we can really uncover whether they can do the things that they say they can do.
Yeah. Basically, you do that through role playing is what
Correct.
you're saying. That's the way to assess them.
Although
Yep.
my mentor and your friend Jack Daly will say, we never say role play, we say role practice.
Role practice.
Because
right.
nobody gets better by playing. And if you're a golfer, you'll understand that that's true.
Makes sense. Thanks for the clarification there. With technology, obviously, more companies are hiring remote people all over the world. Yep. And certainly when it comes to sales, that's a great opportunity. What are some of the things you have to keep in mind when managing remote salespeople?
Very, very important topic at the moment, Rob, is, now the advent of AI as well. Now a really good remote professional with AI can be a superhuman. So I think in the first instance, it is absolutely true that having a remote sales team can be challenging. For those of us that have been doing this for 2 decades or more, the way that we were bled into a sales role was about joining a tribe and having proximity. We would say things like proximity is power. And oftentimes your manager would take you to a bar, not just because they wanted to buy you drinks, because they wanted to observe you in a social setting. And all of that becomes really difficult when you have remote teams. So the first thing that we have to do when we run a remote sales team is we have to replace proximity with structure. And what that means is we now have to have a very pragmatic rhythm of how we communicate with our team. It can no longer be ad hoc. If I show up to an office with 10 other salespeople, well, we have water cooler conversation. Somebody can walk past me and say, oh, can I just grab you for a second and ask you something? There's collision meetings all the time. When you're remote, And the only conversations you have are clinical Teams meeting, Zoom meeting, Google Meet, whatever it is. And it's all scheduled in advance and you're doing it between other things. You don't have that natural collision meeting. We have to create a rhythm and a cadence of communication that is a mixture of different things. We have to have pipeline reviews. We've got to do role practice, as we said. We've got to do those strategic one-on-ones. But we've also got to create some time to just have some fun together. You know, in my business, we do celebrating wins. So one thing every day that gets celebrated because you get more of the behavior that you recognize and reward. We also do story time. What we've done is my company, like yours, fully remote now, and I've got people from everywhere from South Africa all the way through to the west coast of the US. So it's about a 10-hour time difference from east to west. So jumping on a call and having a random chat is not really a thing. What we do is we do story time 12:30 Eastern every Friday. And I have my people collect things that have happened in the business in whatever part of the world that they're in. And then we built like a little agent in ChatGPT that takes this information. Maybe it's a deal that we won. Maybe we just finished a project and we got a great recommendation from that client. And we feed it into ChatGPT. And then the script that we've created spits out a 5-minute parable. It'll create characters, it'll make it humorous. And then I have my people read these 5-minute stories on Storytime on a Friday. And what it does is connect everybody to culture.
Really
Part
cool.
of the ChatGPT that we've created has got, if you're aware of EOS, it's got the VTO in it, it's got the values, it's got our purpose and vision, all this stuff. So it connects every story back to the core values and to our behavioral code. Because what I'm trying to do is, in a fun way, reinforce the behavior that we want to see more of. And the final thing that I would say is be very careful, especially with a remote team, of only measuring output. It's so easy when people are at arm's length to only measure how many calls did you make this week? What is your number for this month? And if you're only measuring outputs, what you're really doing is you're babysitting spreadsheets. What we want to measure is inputs. Do people show up to role practice? What is the energy that they bring to the meeting? If you're having a virtual call and their camera's over here and they got 2 screens, are they looking at their other screens and quite clearly doing an email while the rest of the team is trying to get engaged? So we're also trying to measure how people show up. I think about it like these camps that they run for American sports teams. I'm getting into my American sports now that I live in the US. And I'm watching all these documentaries about how these teams prepare ahead of season. And when they go to camp, they're measuring the input for every practice session. What is the energy that you brought to that session? Are you a net positive in the rest of the team? That's what I mean by measuring inputs and not just outputs, because those inputs will eventually become the predictors of future success.
One underlying theme that I heard in everything you say about when you're managing remote salespeople, and some of this, by the way, applies to managing anybody remotely,
Sure.
but particularly for salespeople, is really being deliberate about management and about thinking about what does the salesperson need in addition to what I need as a manager. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by Work Better Now, your trusted partner for accessing high-performing talent from Latin America. Our clients say that partnering with Work Better Now has transformed their businesses by providing the proactive, reliable, and skilled professionals they need to thrive. For more resources to help your business grow, visit workbetternow.com/eguide. And if you're ready to build your dream team, head to workbetternow.com to schedule your consultation today. As a special thank you to Great Talent, Great Business listeners, we're offering $150 off your first 3 months. Just mention Great Talent during your consult.
Let's jump to a slightly different topic, which is we're seeing more and more clients bringing on an assistant for the sales department. And in fact, we did it and it's been amazingly helpful. And that's an understatement. When might a company consider bringing in a sales assistant or a sales coordinator, just as an owner might bring on an assistant?
I would say as soon as you find yourself doing a $10 an hour job and you're in a $500 an hour role. I remember when I started this company 8 years ago, I was an EO at the time, and my EO forum buddies were saying, you need to get a virtual assistant. You need to get a virtual assistant. And I said, no, you know what? I'm not that busy yet. And eventually they almost like bullied me into it. And then as soon as I hired that assistant, my very first thought was, why did I not do this sooner? And this has been the experience that we've had with clients, even on the sales side, all the time. We talk about high payoff activities and low payoff activities. One of the fastest, quickest wins that you can have in sales is sitting down with your sales team, with your marketing team, your customer service team, whatever it might be, and doing an exercise where you figure out what is everything that I do in my role, and then making the distinction between what is a high payoff activity. In other words, what is the thing that only you could or should be doing, or a low payoff activity, which is something that probably needs to be done, just not by you, something you could insource, outsource, automate, or stop doing. And once you've done that exercise, it's incredible the amount of time that you can win back. So getting a great virtual assistant for me is a game changer. I have 2 assistants now. I don't say that to brag. I say that because without them, what I do as the CEO and owner of my company is not possible. I'm on the road half the month, traveling, doing speaking engagements. I'm the visionary in my company. I'm still involved with my sales team as a mentor. It's impossible for me to do half the things that I do if I don't have people booking my travel, running my emails, my calendar, doing some of the preparation of documents, the research. All of these things get done for me by capable assistants so that I can focus on the things that only I can do. I'm the only one in my business that can stand in front of a crowd of 500 people and evangelize about what we do. That can't be outsourced. But in order for me to do that at scale, other things need to be done by someone else. Now, we've seen this, thankfully, we've seen companies now embrace this on the sales floor. So many of the customers that we work with will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high-performing salespeople. And one of the biggest challenges they have is finding more salespeople to add to the team. And the new people that join are never quite as good as the people that they have for a variety of reasons. One of the things that you can do while you're coaching up the new people that you're bringing in is find really great sales support for the salespeople you have and almost create like a pod structure where you have your top salesperson and then you have a number of support people that can do things like prospect research, proposal writing, CRM updates, filling out your lead sheets, whatever it might be. All of this busy work that we convince ourselves must be done and it must be done by me can normally be given to somebody in a support capacity. And then in our experience, what that often does is it will help that already high performing salesperson increase their output by another 10, 20, 30, 50%. And if you're spending, I don't know what it might be in whatever state or country you're in, $1,000 to say $3,000 a month on someone, but your rainmaker has increased their output by 10, 20, 50, 100,000 a month.
Some
I mean,
serious
the unit
ROI.
economics of this is so easy, but I think we don't do it because we don't run the math. And we tell ourselves limiting belief stories about how, oh, well, nobody can do it as well as me, or it's going to be faster for me to do it than teach somebody else to do it. Well, if you
Yeah.
don't have a playbook and you don't have some of the basic systems in place, yes, it probably is a heavy lift to give that to someone else. But now you've just uncovered another piece of the puzzle that is stopping you from scaling your business and getting that predictable revenue that you want.
Right. You know, what I did when I got an assistant, and I said the same thing as you, which is, why didn't I do this sooner? What I did is because I hate writing process manuals, but I love the idea of processes. I just had my assistant write up the processes at the time she was learning them. And it's that easy. And then on the sales side, just for the owners out there that are maybe considering getting an assistant for the sales team, imagine your salespeople having 1 to 2 extra hours a day, particularly your top salespeople. That's a home run right there.
I mean, if you think about it, 2 hours a day, right? So when I did this almost 2.5, 3 years ago now, my assistant, the first thing she took over was responding to my emails. And if you have a story that you're telling yourself that an assistant can't do that, I run a business that's across 2 different continents. We've grown somewhere between 50 and 90% year on year for the last few years. You can get an assistant to do that if you train them. So do my emails, do my calendar, etc. And it started by saving me 2 hours a day. And then I did the math. 2 hours a day is 10 hours a week. 4.3 weeks in the month, that's 43 hours a month. If you're working a standard 8-hour day, that's 5 full days of your time back in the first month. I would wager, Rob, that there are founders on this call that if you gave them 5 full days of their time back in 1 month, the things that they could do that has been sitting on their to-do list, that's got to be an exciting prospect. And that's what we find with certainly the companies we work with. And it's now a standard strategy for trying to find low payoff activities, take those away from your top performers, and give that to sales support people for sure.
It's magical. So I think you started to allude to this. If there's a founder watching or listening that wants to double revenue in the near term without doubling headcount, where should they start?
I would genuinely recommend that founders start by having a real diagnostic of their sales function done. I know that a lot of founders are not fans of paying for diagnostics, but here's how I think about it as a founder that started my company with my own money. If somebody's going to ask me to invest to grow my sales, then please give me measurable data that proves that I should invest money here and not here. So the diagnostic should really allow you to see whether you have, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, a talent or people problem, a process problem, or a proposition problem, right? Can I get more out of my existing people, or do I not have the right people in the right seat? Is it simply that my sales process is failing my people and therefore they're struggling despite what I've given them? Or has my offer not aged very well, or it hasn't kept up with my market, or it was just never very irresistible to begin with? And then you can at least see what it is that you need to invest in. The second thing that I would do is I would codify what's working. If you're listening to this podcast, then you have a business. That business has a degree of success. You've not accidentally gotten the success that you've had, but you might have gotten it in a very organic way or by doing things by muscle memory. So you've never really thought about what is the deliberate steps, the actions, the activities, the habits, the behaviors that I've taken in order to get successful. So have somebody help you capture that. And then once you have it, put it in a playbook. Right? If you think about sports teams, even sports teams with amazing talent have a playbook because we have to marshal the troops, right? We have to teach them how to do it in this environment, against this competition, in this territory. And that's really what a sales playbook is. We don't want this thing to just be people dependent. We don't want these purple squirrel unicorn salespeople that are out there. And if you're lucky enough to find one, that's great. But they will be the thing that gets you to a certain level of revenue. And then they will become the spanner in the works that stops you, the wrench, I would say, in American terminology, the wrench that stops you from getting to the next level of growth, because that kind of charisma isn't scalable. It's not replicable. So I would codify it to take away some of the people dependence. And then the final thing that I would do is I would start investing in enablement. So start investing in those SOPs, those tools, those templates, the training, the coaching. Something that is wildly unpopular until it's not is what we talked about before, role practice. If you have certain activities that have worked for you before and you want other salespeople in your team to adopt that, they've got to practice. Because it doesn't matter how many times they watch you do it, that doesn't make them better. I can watch somebody play football or drive a car or go to the symphony and listen to the musicians play. That doesn't make me better at that activity. At some point, I actually have to try. I have to practice. So I would say diagnose what's really not working, codify what is working, and then invest in the enablement of getting others to do it to a high degree. And then you can have more predictability in your revenue generation, both at the top line and at the bottom line.
Yeah. And then let's just add again what we spoke about, which is get an assistant for your sales team.
Absolutely. Jack Daly famously says, if you don't have an assistant, you are one.
Yeah. I think we have that quote up on our site. So last topic I want to cover, which is sales leadership. We've seen companies that take their best salespeople, that person becomes the sales manager.
Sure.
All of a sudden that doesn't work. I wonder why. Or the owner is involved in sales management. How should a growing business think about sales leadership?
I think the first thing that we have to recognize is we are, as business owners, we're not very good at this. In North America, the US and Canada, if you take your best salesperson and you promote them to sales management, that fails 82% of the time. Because the mindset of a great salesperson, 82% of the time, doesn't translate into great sales management. And that's equally true that oftentimes the CEO, founder, owner of the company, while a rainmaker, while a great closer, most often does not make for a great sales manager. Great sales managers can't just be charismatic. As I said earlier, charisma doesn't scale. rhythm does, structure does. So what we're looking for is a sales manager, a sales leader who can really encourage repeatable behavior in the business. And they can do that by obvious things like weekly check-ins and practice sessions and deal reviews. But while you have to win the hearts and minds of the team, you got to think about this almost like, again, in a sporting analogy. I don't know, Rob, did you play sport when you were growing up?
Sure.
So if you played sport when you were growing up, ask yourself this question. What type of coach, sports coach, got the best out of me? Was it the one that was always trying to be my friend and was afraid to offend me and coddled me? Or was it the coach that kind of held my feet to the fire a little bit and made me appropriately uncomfortable and motivated me and sometimes cheerleaded for me and sometimes kicked my butt a little bit? Those are typically the coaches that got the most out of you. Now, ask yourself the question, was that sports coach that you had growing up necessarily better than you at that sport? And probably not, right? They would have been a little bit older in years or whatever it might be. You might have been legitimately more talented than them, but that didn't stop you from absorbing the coaching that you were getting because you had a belief that this human being's superpower was to get the best out of me. And the moment you accepted that and leaned in, you were better for it. So, what we need are sales managers, leaders that are positioning for mutual respect, not just for likability. I like to think as a sales manager almost as a strength coach, not a hype man, right? We need people whose superpower is to hold us accountable, to coach us, to pick us up, to encourage us, to get the most out of us, not to try and pretend that they're the smartest person in the room. So what I'm looking for are CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs who at some point, maybe they've done that initial push to 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, whatever it is. And then they have the self-awareness to say, you know what? I actually don't think that I'm the best person to lead the sales team. That happened for me about 4 years into my business. It was a little bit of an ego thing that I had to get over. I consider myself pretty knowledgeable about sales. But I was traveling and I just moved my business over to the US and I wasn't available. So the sales management and leadership was happening ad hoc when I had time and I never had time. And at some point I just had to put my hand up and almost had to see myself speaking from stage on this topic and say, maybe it's time that I drink the Kool-Aid. I'm going to have to practice what I preach. And I had to go out and hire somebody to run my team. And then also I had to make myself available to be part of the development of that team. So my head of sales would call me and say, hey, we're having role practice on Friday. If you're not traveling, I need you there. And I need you to take off your owner hat, put on your business development hat, and you're going to play full out. You're going to be sitting in the seat of the salesperson. Then you're going to be the prospect. Then you're going to be the observer because the other salespeople need to be remotely in proximity to you to learn from you, to absorb from you. So I need you to be a salesperson on Friday. Can you do that? And for me, if that brings me replicability and scalability in my sales function, I'm all in.
I want the viewers and the listeners to think about what you just said and realize you're one of the world's premier sales and sales management experts, and you are not managing your sales team. You hired somebody to do that.
Correct.
So everybody, please take note of that. It could be one of the big things that really becomes a catalyst in your company. Morné, this has been amazing. Thank you for sharing these insights. This has been absolutely amazing. Where can people find out more about you and Immerse Sales?
Absolutely. Our company website is immersesales.com. So EMERSE sales.com. My speaking website, if you want to see what I'm up to and where I'm speaking, both virtually and in person, is just mornesmit.com. I'm sure the details will be in the show notes. And then just look me up on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I will admit that our marketing is probably not as everywhere as it should be. I have a new marketing manager that promises me that will be changed very soon. But we are available. There's lots of free content online if you want to go to YouTube and get more insights into what we do as a company.
Awesome. Morné, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you for the invite.
Thanks for listening. The Great Talent, Great Business podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the worksheet for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at Great Talent, Great Business, or visit greattalentpodcast.com.